Very good. Hi, everybody. It's great to see you. I love to see these people joining us. Amber, Elizabeth, Monica, Ellen, Kathy, Michelle, Dawn, and Gilbert. Hello, Christine, Kat, Charita. We've got a big webinar today. We had almost 220 people register. We're getting about a 35% show rate, and then the rest of the 65%, half of those people watch it within a week. It's really kind of cool what we have going on. You're all staring at me. So do me a favor, move your mouse, go into the share screen button at the bottom in the middle of the screen, go to the left, that's your chat box. Please click on it. I want to hear where you are from. We can see your name, but just tell us where you're from by clicking and typing it into the chat box, if you don't mind. Okay, great. New Jersey, there we go. Tampa, love it. Houston, Connecticut, all over the country. Charlotte, Philly, Indiana, love to hear it. Okay, guys, so we're from all over the country. And this is like the most exciting thing. I think if you've been watching Facebook, I got very embarrassed because I decided, there we go, to get my nose refixed. I broke it 20 years ago when my kids hit me in the face with a hockey puck. I had a wonderful plastic surgeon make it look nice, pert, and pretty, but he didn't know how to do reconstruction. So he made it look pretty and my nostrils collapsed and I couldn't breathe. I went back to him, he did another operation. That didn't work because he didn't know what he was doing. So I went to an ENT this spring when COVID opened, and he said, you have no nostrils and you broke your nose again when I fell jogging at a Zumba convention and broke my jaw. So this ENT dude recommended another plastic surgeon that reconstructed whatever, and I can breathe. And my husband says I snore now. Isn't that lovely? But you know what? We were talking about wedding anniversaries. Rena is 18th wedding anniversary today.
Yes.
Christine's been 20 years. I'm 40 years. You know, payback is a bitch. Sorry about that. But now I snore. So there you go. All right. So we're very excited here. Fact or fiction, female myths busted. As fitness professionals, we are no stranger to the commonly perpetuated myths surrounding women's fitness, and those through these misconceptions are based on unfounded facts and are scientifically unsubstantiated. They remain the focus of many programs designed specifically for women. So these chicks are going to help us go through this. First person I'm going to introduce is our science expert, hormone expert, exercise phys expert is Melissa Layne. She is a Kinesiology Department faculty member at the University of North Georgia. She has 30 years of experience in the fitness industry, a master's degree in exercise physiology. She has written numerous certifications for SCW. She's one of our prize faculty members, having written nutrition coaching for fitness pros, hormones, nutrition, and ways not to murder your children. I have no idea what just about every certification dealing with nutrition. We have the wonderful Christine Conti. She's an international fitness educator, consultant, CEO of Conti Fitness and Wellness. I love this. She's a former investment banker, English teacher, coach, and a 20-year veteran of the industry. She runs a wonderful podcast, which is Two Fit Crazies and a Microphone. So Christine has a wealth of knowledge that she's learned herself as well as from others. Very cool. And then Rena, the anniversary girl, is the founder and CEO of Passion Fit. And she's an entrepreneur. She's a writer. She's authored a new book that's just about to come out. And she's a public speaker, content creator, media spokesperson, and a certified health and wellness expert. We also have the wonderful Mike DeVello, who is the operations director for SCW. Thank you, Mike, for running this webinar and keeping us cats herded. We're going to jump right in because we only have 45 minutes. So we're just going to jump right in. Number one question: how should women's strength training programs differ from programs designed for men? And I'm going to start with you, Rena, because I can. All right.
Yeah.
And because I think you were talking not just about the physical differences with men, but some of the emotional and psychological and social issues that women have as compared to men with strength training.
Absolutely. I mean, physiologically speaking, the ratio between the weight that you're training with or lifting to your own body weight, the ratios are the same for women and men, even though when men might be bigger and stronger and weigh more. So when you think of it from that perspective, you might just adjust the types of weights that you're using and the amount of weights that you're using, but women can still strength train. Their muscle function is just like men. So from that perspective, there shouldn't be very many differences. As you mentioned, Sarah, it's the psychological part that we have to get through with many of our clients. And so what I do with my clients is I try to meet them where they are. If they're having reservations about strength training for whatever reason, even if there are myths that are in their mind, I start with body weight training because that's a great way to get them into the strength training mindset, have them see what they can do in terms of strengthening their core, their balance, their upper and lower body. And once they become more comfortable, then we'll get into using weights and then more and more equipment. But I think if you slowly and gradually take them from step 0 to step 10 or wherever they want to go, that will help them to see that if they start with body weight and light weights, they're not going to bulk up. They're not going to look like men because they physiologically and hormonally cannot. And that's really going to help them to get more comfortable.
Okay, great. And okay, Melissa, hit us.
When research is done on strength training, they're basically looking at two different things. They're looking on what is known as the external load. And like Rena said, when you look at an external load between a male and a female, you're looking at percentages of what the body weight is. So there you're not looking at anything different. And then your internal load is what most of your research is based on. And these are things like your blood lactate markers, your heart rate, your VO2, and things like that. So the research between both is very much the same, but we have to start looking at hormones. There is a ton of research about what happens with estrogen. I know we're going to talk about hormones later on, but estrogen plays such a big role in your osteoblast and your osteoclast. So once you become perimenopausal or postmenopausal and your estrogen levels drop by 40%, you've got to increase the load on your muscles, which is going to pull on your bone to prevent osteoporosis. You have to look at things kinesiology wise, with women having a different built pelvis. Their feet are going to be placed different in squats. Because we have a chest, we probably need to work our back a little bit more. And then I know Christine is going to talk a lot about the personal trials and tribulations of the arthritis and the osteoporosis and things like that. But technically we need to lift, and we need to lift the same volume, and volume means time under tension, that a man does.
Yes. All right. Excellent. And what I brought up before we had the camera go on, you know, in looking a little bit at the research, there's very little research that's done specifically on women. And Melissa, you rightly brought up the point that there's not that much difference in the musculature except the physiology of the body and the placement of the weights. So that is always very interesting. So Christine, can you please chat with us about osteoporosis and arthritis, being sadly the expert that you've grown into, right?
You know what? I agree with, both Melissa and Rena on this, that women need to be strength training. Gone are the days where, it is okay to just go to a gym or ride a bicycle or, just be on the treadmill and be an aerobic junkie. And many of us are at fault for this and perpetuating this. But I think research is out there right now that both men and women need to be strength training. Period. Drop the microphone on that. There is, a lot to be said, though, because people are very hesitant for this. Hormones, yes, they're at play, which we'll get into. But, adding on and telling women and educating women about, listen, this is what happens to your body. Look at, you're losing 40% of your muscle mass. Look at what is happening as you age. we're fighting against the tide right here is what I always say to people. I said, we are swimming against the tide. And guess what? If we don't keep moving forward or putting one step or one bicep curl at a time, we're going to be swept backwards. And the second you stop moving, it's all over. And specifically, I'd mention this for those of you that don't know, I was diagnosed at age 30 with an advanced form of rheumatoid arthritis. And for me, that was kind of a line in the sand for me to say, all right, you know what? This is the time to educate myself. And honestly, it's been the biggest gift because I went forward and said, you know what? I need to educate other people and have since, written courses and go out and talk about arthritis and osteoarthritis and various autoimmune disease, even cancer and Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, about the power of movement, hormones. And we didn't even mention yet what that does to your brain as well. The whole idea of neuroplasticity and brain chemicals. And I think there's a lot more to this than meets the eye. So I would have to say yes and yes, but it's like Rena said, it's a very individual process.
There was a research study, oh my God, this was years ago, and I think Tatiana Kulavu from, I think she was at University of Indiana, was instrumental in it, and they did a comparison of how women felt about themselves. They used an MOD test to look at this, how women felt about themselves after a cardio workout versus a strength training workout. And everybody thinks it's all about, how are you going to feel after your cardio workout? You're going to have all these endorphins. The reality was the results of the study concluded that women felt much more powerful and had greater self-esteem after the strength training workout. And I attribute that to the feeling of power and control, because frankly, we're looking around here and with work, poor Melissa has been on Zoom living in front of a camera for what, over a year now, loving it, of course, because I know she loves technology. But we, with the stress and everything that goes on, the loss, and the stress of our lives between, let's say spouses and kids, and then teaching and training and holding down a full-time job and making everything work. If there's a sense of power and strength that we can glean psychologically, like you brought up, Christine, from strength training, this is incredibly valuable for us. And I do believe that the strength training, it's amazing how quickly you atrophy. I haven't been able to do strength training because of my nose. The doctor, I got internal stitches, whatever the heck's going on in my nostrils. I haven't been able to do it for it's been, I think 3 weeks now. And I've lost, I'm like, oh, wow, I lost 2 pounds. Oh, it's not a pretty 2. Okay. It ain't pretty because it's the tone that just like dies. Rena, you're kind of nodding because I think you work with a lot of female clients. And do you see this happening?
Absolutely. I actually just had one of my clients say that she's naturally underweight, and she, has really enjoyed we've been doing it live stream since the pandemic, but she takes my classes up to 4 times a week, and she's been building muscle and she feels better about herself. Like we said, it comes back to that self-confidence because strength training changes your physique in a way that cardio does not. And I think that if more women could understand that, and again, it's not just about how you look externally, but it's how you feel internally. And I would almost argue that as we age, strength training is even more important because we need that bone density building. We need to maintain that muscle mass as our hormones affect our metabolism and our weight, which then is a spiral and also affects our mental and emotional health and our self-confidence. So I do think if we can start women younger too, think of some of your clients who are new moms out there and they're lifting, babies and car seats and strollers. And if they're not strengthening their core and they're not getting that lower and upper body strength, there's a lot of injuries that can happen as well. I always tell my clients, I want you to pretend when you're picking up something off the ground or you're picking up your baby, use your core, use your glutes, use your quads, and pretend like you're actually, doing a squat as you lift things from the ground up, because I've seen so many of my clients injure their backs because they're bending at the waist and not using those muscle groups. So I could go on and on. There's just so many great benefits to strength training. And hopefully
But
more
you-
women will get that message
You
today.
did, Rena, you did bring up the hormones, and that leads us into questions regarding hormones. And Melissa, you're the expert in this field.
What do you want to talk about?
Oh, hit us with something. I'm sure we'll react. And just so you guys know, I'm watching the chat box. Melissa does she's got a wonderful Facebook group. And she's put the link in there so you guys can go in and join her. I think that would be great. And then also, she has written a book on this, on the nutrition and the hormones.
I don't have a book. I have the cert that's coming June 18th, which is like a book. So I think when we look at hormones specifically, the biggest problem is we have to make sure that there is a fine line drawn between creating a volume that will change a female's body versus creating a volume that puts us into overtraining. So when you are fertile and your estrogen levels are normal, and of course they're high in the first 10 days of your period, estrogen actually helps cleave the triglyceride molecule so that you can use it as energy. So estrogen helps the glycerol fall off so you can use the free fatty acids as energy. So this is probably the time when you want to do more endurance-based things. And then in the luteinizing phase, if you're still fertile, when estrogen is lower, this would be the time where you want to do more high volume interval training and get a longer epoch, okay? But then you have to look to make sure you're giving your clients 48 hours of rest for a body part, because if they're training every day, their cortisol levels are going to chronically go up. And your cortisol levels play a role in your circadian rhythm. So when you have chronically high cortisol levels, you are also going to see insomnia, and that's the #1 sign of sympathetic overtraining. Then you also have to look at when your estrogen levels are high, testosterone is high. You need testosterone, growth hormone, and IGF to make a muscle cell grow. So all of these hormones come into play, and like I said, if you want to know more, Mike has the link up there. We do this all day long on June 8th.
We could do this all day long and hear it. So, you know, the bottom line is endurance training, first 10 days of the cycle, higher intensity, I guess higher volume and higher weight in the last 10 days of the cycle. I hear 48 hours rest. I think as individuals get older, if you're talking heavy weights on one body part and the same body part, I'm not sure 48 hours is enough recovery time. It depends on the individual. But Christine, you brought up earlier a very good point that, we don't have to do strength training every other day if, let's say, we're doing upper body, lower body, upper body, if it's something different. Can you explain that a little bit more?
There's a couple things at play when we talk about this, and we're, hopefully all of you fitness professionals, or you're just fitness enthusiasts on the talk tonight, will get some takeaways. And number one is that Melissa was just talking about hormones and estrogen. Another really important thing about estrogen is that reduces fatigue and muscle damage. That's really important with estrogen, which helps recovery. Now, if people are having issues with estrogen levels, right, like up and down, or they're on replacement therapy or hormones, it's important to know what they're on. So when you take on a client, especially a female client, instead of asking them, what are you eating post-workout, or what are you doing? Or it's important to ask them, hey, what's your cycle like? Do you have any hormone issues? Because these are things that you're going to want to know, whether they're 14 years old or they're 94 years old. And that plays into what Sara just said about, all right, well, can you work out? Can you strength train every day? Yeah, you can. Actually, strength training could just be, like Rena said, body weight only. Strength training is functional. You sit down on a chair, you sit down to use the toilet bowl, you get in a car. Though, I mean, that's functional fitness, is really strength training, and reprogramming people's minds to say, listen, strength training isn't just bench pressing. This isn't like I have to do heavy squats. This is very functional. You need this for life. So if you are working with people that need to move every day, there's nothing wrong with maybe taking 15 minutes every day for a different body part. Let that body part recover, let those muscle fibers rebuild, and work something else. And I think that's really important because, we used to have this idea of like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we strength train. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, we do cardio. That's not really what fitness is. And I think that we need to be the messengers, the harbingers of the real research that's out there, and we need to do our research to best educate our clients.
Can I jump in for just a second there?
Yes, please. One thing I do want to mention, Melissa, just one sec, is that if you're asking your clients, are you on hormone replacement therapy? What are your cycles like? If you do this in a health history form, you're going to be legally responsible for knowing the answer to those questions. That makes me a little concerned. But if you ask that question with Christine, I'm not criticizing you with asking that question, but you also have to say, I'm your trainer right now. I'm not an exercise physiologist, and God knows I'm not an OB-GYN, but as a fitness pro, blah, 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 just so that they put it in the correct parameter. Please, Melissa, go ahead. I apologize.
Christine's last comment was about research. Please be careful about where you get your research. Do not search something in your search bar. Put into your URL, Google Scholar, I think now it's scholargoogle.com, and then Google Scholar will bring up a search bar. You want peer-reviewed university research where no one is getting a kickback. Nobody's paying a hormone replacement therapy. No meds are getting money. No pharmaceuticals are putting something in. Please make sure you go to googlescholar.com.
And you just have to watch out for an ad. And it says legally, it has to say ad and then the information. And a lot of times I've got to go to the third or the fourth page of Google if I want to go to the original research, which is a challenge. Melissa, we did get a question from Jackie. Jackie asked, why is thyroid disease more common in women?
Because estrogen actually plays a role in the function of the thyroid. And once you get into thyroid in T3 and T4, it can be an all-day affair. But the thing to remember is you have so many different ways to make estrogen. Not only do you make it in your ovaries when you're fertile, your fat cells are actually an endocrine gland, and you make estrogen in your fat cells even after menopause. That's why obesity is a big risk factor for breast cancer and ovarian cancer, because the longer you're exposed to estrogen over your lifetime, the more likely you are to get a feminine cancer. We have environmental estrogens that are in our plastics, that are in our cans. We have estrogens that are in our isoflavones in our food. So estrogens don't just come from the ovaries. There's so many other things in our world that get
and this is one of the reasons why if you get the endurance athletes like Christine, you get these athletes that stop menstruating because their fat, their body fat is so low that it can't hold on to the estrogen. I remember when I first got pregnant, it was like I put on 12 pounds right away. It was like, whoa, where did that come from? And your hormones have to sit somewhere. Rena, how do you deal with a lot of your clients when you're trying to get this balance of strength training and proper nutrition and also making them feel comfortable working out?
Yeah, I mean, I love what everyone has said, Sara, Melissa, and Christine. And I think, Christine said something really interesting about you can technically strength train every day if you are working different muscle groups. And I love that because I do think that a lot of us who work with women, they're busy, they work, they have families, and sometimes they just want to get everything done as quickly and efficiently as possible. And so sometimes for those that aren't afraid of strength training, they may think that they have to train all the same muscle groups every day or multiple days a week, which, as we know, can lead to injuries. So I really try to work out a balanced approach in my classes. When I'm doing coaching one-on-one, I try to think about the different muscle groups that we're working, and I do balance it out based off of, okay, today we are going to focus on cardio and upper body, and then maybe tomorrow it's cardio and lower body. The core is something that you can and should be training all the time because you need that to protect your back and to protect against injuries. So that's the one that I always tell my clients, you should be strengthening your core every day, but your upper and lower body and all the different muscle groups, you can kind of rotate. So I try to give them ideas and examples of which muscle groups to work when. And then again, if they're taking my classes regularly, they're going to get a mix of that anyway, because I might be teaching HIIT one day with weights. I might be doing yoga another day, Pilates another day, and so on and so forth, dance for cardio. Nutrition as well is important when it comes to recovery and, are they getting enough of complex carbohydrates? Are they eating enough proteins so that they can build that muscle mass when they are strength training? So it's just education. And the last thing I'll say on that is just, we also have to think about our scope of practice. So if you do have questions, whether it's about hormones or kinesiology, reference Melissa's great research and work, or if you need to kick it back to their gynecologist or their doctor, don't be afraid to not know the answer. The last thing you want to do is come up with an answer that could be detrimental to their health. It's better to, as Melissa and Sara and Christine were saying, do the research, but also go to the people that specialize in those areas that you may not, so that you can also get their perspective. So you're, giving the right recommendations and the safest recommendations to your clients.
Now, that's great advice. And I really like with you talking about the core. And we all know, just to reiterate, the core does not mean, a six pack, because you can kiss that goodbye. But it's all the way up from your shoulders, all the way down to your hips. And it's your front, it's your back, it's rotating. And it's very important to keep in shape. How does strength training specifically benefit the female body? All right, I just threw that out there. Threw that out there to the wind, Christine, who's laughing at me.
I think I honestly, the female body, what state is the female body in? Is it someone that is, pre-puberty, post-puberty? Is it someone that is pregnant, postpartum, premenopausal? Like, I really believe that at different stages of life, it is important in different ways. When I was a collegiate athlete, I was a monster. I mean, I was picking things up and throwing trucks, and, it was all about strength and power. I know I really need to bring in a picture at some point, because no one believes me, because I'm like this little teeny athlete now, but it's different. But there was a purpose. And I think that throughout your life as a woman, you have different goals. The goals, if a collegiate athlete comes to me and asks for help, the way that I treat them is totally different than the way that I treat my, active aging 75-year-old client who just wants to stay out on the golf course for as long as possible. I really believe that's the key, is what is the goal that dictates what you are going to do. And again, when we talk about hormones and we talk about nutrition, what I did want to mention, Melissa was talking about hormones, and I always think of this. We talk about women's strength training. We didn't even bring this up. Women still need to fuel themselves. We should be still having protein to fuel our muscles, but there's a difference between doing some strength training, having a like protein shake versus taking care of your hormones. That I think is something that we as fitness professionals need to be aware of. And I like what, Sara, you're saying that we should ask these questions, but I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to give you hormone replacement, but I'm sure as heck going to find out what that's about and what signs I should be looking for if something is off. Because that would be a way for me to say, hey, you know what? You should probably talk to your doctor about this. Or, I think this might be something. So
is there something, I'm going to throw this at Melissa, I think she'll probably know. Like when people have amenorrhea, when they're not menstruating, is that a problem? Like if somebody is a collegiate athlete, you've seen these, I'm going to call them girls because hello, they're 40 years younger than I am. But these athletes that are really skinny, really jacked, and just training like mad, and they're not menstruating.
Yes, 99% of the time it's a problem because of what estrogen does. Estrogen, osteoblast, osteoclast, it keeps your blood vessels healthy. It makes your blood vessels pliable. That's why men tend to have heart attacks prior to women, is because estrogen makes your blood vessels shrink and expand depending on what your blood pressure is. So a man who doesn't have the same amount of estrogen, and men do make estrogen in their liver from an enzyme called aromatase. So they do have some that turns testosterone into estrogen, but it is definitely a problem because your hormones, progesterone and estrogen, go up and down in relationship to each other. And the thing to remember is if your estrogen is low, progesterone is going to be high. And in the wrong part of a cycle, that's negative for a neurotransmitter called GABA that actually helps negate depression. So yes, it's a problem.
So, and also when we look at, I just watched a horrible, wonderful movie on teenage suicide and how it's up 160%, 160%. And I do worry about, you have to watch these teens. A lot of it has to do with the prominence of social media and the kids being on their phones on average 9.5 hours a day. But it's also, we have to watch these athletes, and anything that predisposes someone to depression, especially, in a younger woman that may or may not have self-esteem issues, we've got to watch that. So that's really interesting. Melissa, what are your thoughts? I know I'm throwing it out and you're like, you could talk on this for 3 days. Hormonal health and strength training.
Okay, so we've kind of already brought home the osteoporosis. We brought home the role that it plays with keeping your joints supple, making your satellite cell theory, which is what Christine said is your recovery. Your recovery is your satellite cell theory. Two things that I want to hit on. Like Christine says, we all kind of have a niche that we fall in, and my niche these days is working with perimenopausal and menopausal women. And our big concern is weight loss, weight gain, weight maintenance. You have a protein in your body called albumin, and albumin is what carries your adipose cells from your boob in the back of your arm and your butt to your leg in a cycle class. And albumin drops the fat off to use as a fuel source at your plasma lemma. So here's like when Rena said she takes women and she starts them off with their baby weights. We have got to train women to pick up heavy weights because we have to increase the size of the plasma lemma, because if you don't increase the size of the plasma lemma, albumin are like trucks at Macy's backing up to the store trying to drop off your dresses, and there aren't enough loading docks. The bigger your plasma lemma, the more fat trucks can back up to use fat as a fuel. And the other thing, strength training, we have to look at the number of motor units that are firing when we strength train. When we lift heavy, we actually create a synchronicity in our motor units, and that helps our reaction time. And think about the number one reason people over 50 end up in the hospital, because they fall, because they can't react to losing their balance. And part of that is because they don't have synchronous motor units firing. And weightlifting makes them more synchronous.
Boom. Okay,
Drop the
thank
mic.
you. Drop the mic. No, but this is amazing stuff. And we did get a really good question from Judith. How does testosterone figure in with women's weight and muscle tone?
Testosterone, growth hormone, and insulin-like growth factor all need to be present to make the satellite cell theory occur. The satellite cell theory is like a stem cell. It makes your cells grow bigger and reproduce. You can grow a muscle without testosterone. You can. It has been proven, but it is a lot easier to grow one with testosterone. So women do make testosterone. They make it more when their estrogen levels are high, because testosterone raises your libido. And if estrogen levels are high, it's because you want to have a baby, which is why your cheeks turn red and why a baboon's butt turns pink, so that the baboon that's male can find her. But if you want to raise your testosterone naturally, eat seafood, sleep, and testosterone is made in REM sleep. So as you sleep throughout the night, your REM cycle gets longer. The longer your REM cycle is, the more testosterone you make. Your REM cycle is longer in the early mornings. Think about men and testosterone early in the morning. Enough said. Okay, there are 5 exercises. Sarah just got that. There are 5 exercises.
She's a little slow, but after 40 years, I got it. I got it down.
There are 5 exercises that you can do that will raise your testosterone levels and keep your testosterone high in your bloodstream. You ready?
I'm ready. I got my pen. Go ahead.
Leg press, shoulder press, bench press, deadlift, and squat.
Uses the largest muscle groups in the body. Yeah. Now, which leads us perfectly into machines. Rena, I'm coming to you. Do you use machines? Do you use free weights? And I even added in bands or tubes. Which might be the most effective training modality for your female clients?
Yeah, I think it depends on, I think all of them are great for different reasons and in different ways. And it really depends on what it is that you are training for. I remember in my mid-20s, I was training to compete in ESPN fitness competitions. And so I was, at that point, I think I was 12% body fat, the best shape I was in my life. And to back up to what some of the stuff that Melissa was saying, my menstrual cycle was all messed up because of it. So there is that, I experienced that correlation. But at that time, when I was training with a trainer, I was using free weights, I was using machines, I was using, elasticity bands and things like that. So you might be using all of it, but you do have to be careful about overtraining and maybe picking up more than your normal load could take. With my clients, I look at things like injuries. Do they have back issues? Do they have knee problems? Are there issues in their joints? Do any of them have osteoporosis? In that case, I'm really focusing more on body weight training and balance, because I want to prevent them from falling and breaking bones. But if they have the stamina, they've been training for a while and they're not afraid of it, then I might work with them more on machines and heavier dumbbell weights and barbells and things like that. So I think it is very individualized, and it's really important to ask those important questions, know what their goals are, know what their injuries are, know what their age is, what life stage they're in. Do they, have they had kids or not? Are they premenopausal? And then you're going to need to come up with a program that's going to work for them. And sometimes it's testing different things out and seeing what their comfort level is as well. because I think that is important. You never want a client to feel like they're being pushed too much or not being pushed enough. So checking in with them regularly to see how the training is working, and then looking and seeing if there's results, asking them how they feel, testing them to see if they could do things after, let's say, 3 months of training that they couldn't do. I have clients that tell me that I did not have core strength, and now, there's so many exercises I can do that I couldn't, or I can do power squats, and that used to hurt my knees and joints, but now I've developed the strength in my butt and my thighs to do that. So it is individualized, but it's wonderful when you can see your clients making progress.
Yeah, that's great. And I do think it's really interesting, the different modalities that people end up enjoying. Christine, what do you see being the most popular out there and the most effective out there for women?
Honestly, women tend to love the bands. And I don't know if it's just because they're sexier or they're fun. There's a lot dealing with the bands and stability. I think it's just something that's fun and different as opposed to, picking up weights. A lot of clients that I've worked with that are, post rehab, or they're done with physical therapy, but they're not really ready to go back and be in a group class or whatnot. They're in that in between. It is a great way for all those stabilizing muscles. In addition, that, my niche is, kind of the special populations, people, I'm Statue of Liberty. Bring me you're hungry, you're poor, you're weak, that's me. And those are the clients I enjoy, but many of them have issues with grip strength, with holding on to things. And bands are a great way to just wrap around your wrists. And it's just a wonderful way to do that. But again, it's up to the certain client. Is that what they like? If they hate bands, again, it's something that you have to educate yourself on, using those different modalities so that you can roll them out and try them out with your classes, with your participants. Yeah, look at that.
We did these bands, which, to be honest with you, also my kid brought them to he's playing D3 hockey, very, very high level hockey. He's probably going to end up playing in Europe next year. And the bands, they're using them like crazy now. So I really do see that a lot.
You know what I would say too, Sarah, before, I know we're kind of wrapping up soon. I just wanted to piggyback what Melissa said before with the testosterone. I have to jump in because, ladies, it is so empowering to be strong. And that's something that we as fitness professionals need to go out and glorify. Gone are the days of, oh, look at how skinny can I get? No, let's be strong. Let's be powerful, right? Let's be female entrepreneur business leaders. And, by lifting and walking out and feeling empowered, strength training increases estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone, right? You're going to feel good. And guess what? You're going to feel empowered. And by the way, those also make you a little bit more,
I always say, people talk about Jennifer Aniston arms, and it's just, thank goodness it's getting to be, a shapely woman with strong musculature, upper body, showing triceps, quads, hamstrings. It's popular, and that's good. And I think we should stick out there as fitness leaders. Melissa, I'm going to ask you for a closing remark, please.
My closing remark would be lift heavy, increase your volume. As long as your form stays good, you're not going to look like a bodybuilder. Being a bodybuilder is a lifestyle, carrying a cooler around with you and tracking your sleep and your periods and everything like that. Lift heavy, sleep well, and eat right.
Love that. Okay. And Rena?
Yeah, I would say bring on the strength training. It's empowering. It's good for you, not only physically, but mentally and emotionally as well. It will boost your self-confidence. It's good for your longevity and your overall health. And as I said earlier, I honestly believe that as we age, strength training becomes even more important. So the more we as fitness professionals and enthusiasts can be the role models and set that example for our clients, the more they're going to not be afraid of it and they're going to want to learn more. And again, if we meet them where they are and just take it one step at a time, we can get them to love strength training, hopefully, as much as we all do.
Excellent. All right, I'm going to show you guys, as we always end, with a new video. We've got a wonderful nutrition coaching summit coming up June 19th, and we're going to watch the video. I also want to get you guys just quickly aware we're going to be launching it tomorrow. So I'm going to share with you real quickly. Let's stop that. Our Active Aging Summit, we're bringing back, we're going to be doing it in July. So in June, we have our Nutrition Coaching Summit. In July, we have our wonderful convention for active agers. So I do want to thank you guys. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Rena. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Mike DeVello, for running this webinar for us. And thank you guys for coming. I want you all to have a good night. And we'll see you at the Nutrition Coaching Summit. And we'll see you on Thursday for another webinar that we're doing on functional fascia for group exercise. All right, guys. Take care. Have a good night.